I am Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Journeys. Thank you for joining us this evening. My guest this evening is Dr. Tony Sewell, the gentleman you're seeing next to me. Dr. Sewell, good evening and welcome to CWS Journeys.
Good evening, and it's great to be here.
Awesome. Dr. Tony Sewell began his career as a London school teacher. He has spent many years as a teacher trainer working at Kingston and Leeds universities and has published widely on the experience of boys in education. He has also been an international consultant in education for, among others, the World Bank and the Commonwealth Secretariat. Dr. Sewell is the CEO of Generating Genius, a charity which works with underprivileged children. Dr. Sewell, if you were not doing what you're doing today as a career, what would you be doing?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. Maybe I'd be the King of England. Who knows? I mean, it depends. I mean, I suppose politics interests me, and I think that maybe I would have gone down that route, and then I would have got corrupted, and I would have been, sort of known as a flawed leader. I mean, who knows? Who cares? I don't really want to be anything else but what I'm doing now. That's that's another thing. I don't. But I'm happy with the course that I've put out. I don't really want to be anything else.
One of the things I usually opine on this program is that I believe each of us is a gem with many facets, and oftentimes people only get to see one or two and they form an opinion. So what I like to do during this show is twist the gem a bit and expose the various facets so that by the end of the show, our audience get maybe a more three-dimensional or multi-dimensional perspective on who you are. So I want to go down into your timeline a little bit and ask you this. To give us a glimpse into your life at the age of 9 and 16.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to, you have to really look at what it's like to be a black boy in the UK in the 70s, And I think that you have to go back and say, well, how did I get there? How did I arrive here? Well, it came from that Caribbean migration in the 1950s, my parents coming to the UK, thinking that there was going to be gold on the pavements and finding that there was hostility and racism and things like that. And I'm looking back at that whole project of the Caribbean people moving to England in that time was a complete and utter disaster, really, to be honest. People look back at that as, with we did a good time, but it was a flawed project because at the end of the day, the people were not prepared to go over there, and the people who were on the other end were not there ready to receive them. There were no facilities, and to be honest, the whole thing was a collapsing kind of entity. Yes, you could argue that Caribbean people did make a major contribution to the wealth of the UK from those people there. And certainly in those cold days in the UK, spiced up the dreary, fog-ridden streets of Notting Hill and Brixton and brought some Caribbean vibrancy to it. But other than that, to be honest, I would have thought my parents would be better off staying in poor Rockabessa in Jamaica and suffering there. Right? At least they would have been suffering in the warmth rather than in the cold. However, history is something that you can't, it's like anything, and this is where I think some people get caught up with the whole historical flow, because if you look at it, history is really, from any kind of perspective, not just from a black one, but from an Asian one, people conquered, people migrate, people do terrible things to each other, and the thing moves on and on and on. And I think that what happens is you can get trapped in the past in many ways, and I wasn't going to allow that the madness of the 1950s and that migration to actually, because I was born, I didn't have any choice. My parents mated, and then I came out, and that was it. So I had to get on with it. What was I? I was a black Brit. That was what I was. One of the first like a kind of a new production car line, the Black Brit, like a Henry T. Ford car. We were just the new things. And what were we? We had these English accents and black skins, and we still faced a hard time. But I kind of felt I wasn't going to allow that to stop me. I think two things really were influencing me. My mother's determination to just say, basically, you have to get on with it. And she had that kind of perspective. And I think the other thing was where I ended up and my friends didn't, in a sense. And it was just a bit of luck, really. And it actually was ending up in a predominantly middle class, whitish, if you like, if you want to use racial terms, church, where so me, my brother, my sister, we just went there. But we didn't actually go there for God. We actually went there because on the Sunday afternoon they'd serve a lot of cakes and tea, and it was for free. We were just after. In those days, food and freeness was really interesting about food, because unlike now, we everywhere you just couldn't get enough food. Especially if you were young. And so so somebody told us at this place they used to give young people a lot of free food and drink and lemonade, and we just ran down there to get it. And then you had to go to church afterwards to sort of back for your sins. And so the consequence of that was that we got a new friendship group, a new peer group that wasn't the same one as my black peers. We just got introduced into this middle class world. So what happened then was we just went along with that. So it was obviously for us inevitable that at 16 you did A-levels, you went on and you went to university, and that was what our friends were doing. And so we just went along with that. So we just got, that's the way. So I got accidentally sidetracked into that. That was, the English experience was a bit different for me, I think. I'm not the usual suspect.
And Tony, education. Why that particular path?
Again, the kind of education I had in my secondary school was pretty poor. I mean, most of the time, people just spent time beating each other up. There wasn't actually much education. One time I sat down and actually, what am I doing here? Because everybody used to just be fighting each other. So, the way it worked in England was that if you failed your common entrance, which I did, you ended up in a secondary modern school, and that was like the lowest of the low, really, in a sense, and that really wasn't going anywhere. Since then, in England, have sort of felt guilty about that, and we've totally reformed that. We don't have that anymore. But so I used to actually sometimes miss school and go to the library instead. I mean, most people used to bunk off school to go to football or whatever, or seek their. I actually used to bunk off school to go and read. So I'd be trying to find my education by leaving my school. That was kind of weird. So I mean, my teachers would sometimes see me in the library, and they wonder why I wasn't in class. Well, nothing was happening in the class. So happily, I used to just do that and do my own thing. So that was quite hard actually, because I was essentially sort of self-educated up to about 16. Yeah.
So Tony, who in the neighborhood, who do you remember has had an impact on who you have become today? Someone that you... I go back to the church thing again, because those would have been there. I'm not that religious. I'm not selling religion, but that was what we had, and that's what we had to work with. So that Church of England was interesting because there were people in there that basically just seemed to like me for who I am. I mean, I was really lucky. They used to give me great jobs. The network that was there, I used to have great holiday jobs. They used to take me on holiday. I used to go to Cornwall, to all these different places, and these would be. I was like, as a young person in that environment, I was like the son of this middle class environment. So I'd go off to all different places with them
horse riding and all the other things. And I had another kind of life, via that church. And so the people in there had a great influence on me. My English teacher also at my school, that was the only teacher that did anything, was another role model. And then my mother, I suppose. And that was it, really. Yeah.
Mm. So.
Oh yeah. Apart from that, I would also say, underlying it was the big Jamaican influence that was going on via the Rasta fairy movement. Because at the 70s, that was the big thing. So, you definitely would hear the poetry of Rastafari via reggae music, and that used to keep you going as well.
Mm.
I think that was so it was a very kind of schizophrenic thing, because you had this kind of very kind of white middle class environment on one level, and then on the other level you had Burning Spear and Dennis Brown and all these other people telling about your roots, etc.
And Tony, your connection to your roots. I understand your parents, of course, but did the neighborhood help? How did you maintain that strong connection to your Jamaican roots?
Well, we moved out of Brixton, which was the kind of epicenter of blackness in London at that time. Mm-hmm. And my mother moved us out fairly quickly. In fact, there's always this myth, around neighborhoods, and I always want to sort of dispel them, that people actually wanted to stay there and actually had fun there. Nobody wants to stay in a poor neighborhood. They always want to move up and that. And it's only kind of people who come along, poets, etc., who want to mythologize these places. But basically, it was a dump, and we wanted to get out. Mm. And we were lucky to get out at that time. Subsequently, that area is now so gentrified that you probably need $1 million to get in there now. But at the time, it was a place that you would sort of be happy to leave.
And do you think that what you do today with generating genius, and we'll get into that in a moment, but this passion that you have for empowering and giving opportunities to students or young people in underprivileged neighborhood, you think having grown up to some degree in Brixton, in a neighborhood similar, would have helped to form the way you feel about this today?
No, because I think yes and no. I can't paint a picture that I was in dire poverty and I was, then suddenly I want to kind of help poor people because I was from the ghetto. We were kind of upper sort of working class area.
Okay.
It was a nice area. So, the school was rubbish, but at the same time, we managed our way through that. And the welfare system in Britain was really good to us. I mean, I didn't pay a penny for any of my university. 4 years, the government paid everything.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how it was in England, because nobody went to university in those days. Hardly anybody went. Most people either got jobs from the working class. And the way it went was that if you were poor, the more money you got. So I'd be going on trips abroad on my grant, and things like that, because it was so well endowed. Now those things don't exist anymore, but I took advantage of that. But so I would say that the connection between what I do now and my past has been about opportunity and need. So what I did notice was that too much of what happened to me was about luck. And I just wanted to think, and I think that what's happening in lots of societies, and I see that in the Caribbean, and I see that in the UK and the US, is that people in the know, people who are networked, people who have connections get on. Those who do not have them, they stay behind. And this is irrespective of race. It's just, that's how it is. So what you've got to do, if you're going to make a change, is you've got to bring that opportunity and need together. So you've got to give those students some help. So I have an analogy of kind of, we are in the charity. What we do is I describe it as a sort of we call it the sharp middle class elbows. So what we do is we shove people out of the way, you know, and who that's what middle class, particularly mothers, do to make sure their children get there. Now we do that on a more kind of systematic level, where an organizational level, where we find the opportunities.
What people are you shoving out of the way, if I may tap into that metaphor?
All right, maybe when we say shove out the way, what we mean is we're trying to get them at the top table, because that's what happens when those middle class parents use the sharp elbows. They use their connections. They use who they know. They duck and dive. They do lots of different things to make sure that their children get to the top table. So what you're doing is you're presenting the students with a kind of a navigation tool, so they're able to get to the top. Because what it is, and that could be simply telling them when to use standard English and when not to. It could be giving them a particular opportunity to get into a job interview. Let me give you a concrete example. Some of the banks were coming to me in England and saying, we would like to diversify. And I said, well, okay, you're going to diversify. I've got lots of students I know who could easily work in your bank and make you loads of money in the end. But here's how it goes. What I want from you is you give our students the job interview. So this is for internships, for example. So I'm not asking them to give them the job. I'm asking them to fast track them to the interview. Yeah. So that's what they did, and I've seen our students go through anyway on that. So now, if we weren't around doing that, having that sort of negotiation, then those students wouldn't get anywhere near the interview at all. They'd just be dropped at the first hurdle, because they would probably go for the privately schooled student and miss out on the state school student. So we're a bridge. We're a bridge from the need to the opportunity.
The opportunity. So the whole idea, the whole concept of generating genius, how did this come about, and how did the name come about?
Yeah, I mean, it really is in its name, because if you think about genius, I always wondered when I was at university, and also in my kind of way of sort of self-educating. I mean, I always look at the way, you kind of get the sense sometimes when you see people who are doing well, that somehow God has endowed something in them, either business or it could be sports. And you think, wow, you sit on the sideline and you admire and you think, I wish I could be like that. But obviously I haven't got the genes, I haven't got this, or I haven't got the right parentage, or I haven't got the right color or race or whatever.